Welcome to Stepping Stone to Awareness Live with a road to reclamation, how we take down the corrupt government with Caroline Stevens. Nothing much going on there. Okay, guys, mics are hot. You are mixing live to air now.
Welcome to a Stepping Stones to Awareness show. I'm Caroline Stevens. Today I'm interviewing Tom Parsons via Skype from Peterborough. Tom is a leader of the People's Revolution Party. There's been a lot of talk about this party on Facebook in the past few weeks, and they've produced a couple of videos. So it's come to my attention, and thanks to Carol Hellier, we have got Tom now on the show. So Tom, welcome to our Basis Project Stepping Stones to Awareness series. Over to you. Please give us some background as to how you became involved in politics and what you see your mission to be.
It's a pleasure to be here. I got involved in politics because, as many truthers, I've been researching for well over a decade, and I've just grown completely disillusioned with my older generation not doing anything really substantial to fix the many problems we have in this country, and there's literally no alternative. So I developed a plan many years ago, and that I've had to wait until pretty much now to then enact it as enough people are awake to be able to listen.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There's certainly Facebook and MeWe are valuable tools in our education of people in the country. And I do think, certainly personally, as a national coordinator for the Brexit campaign, that Brexit campaign provided the catalyst for people to wake up and realise that the government that they sort of had respected before the referendum was not the same. They didn't have the same attitude after the referendum, I think. They had woken up. And I think people are still waking up with the corruption. You know, the corruption, regardless of Brexit, which is, we're being lied to. You can see through the MPs now, they're covering up. We're being more vigilant, aren't we, as to their actions? Yep. And we're talking amongst ourselves. So you have had a background where you were almost murdered, I understand, Tom.
That's correct, yeah.
So in 2012, that's 6 years ago. So how did that happen?
Basically, I was asleep, and basically a guy come in with a claw hammer and attempted to murder me by planting it in my head. I didn't wake up until the third time, luckily. He then tried to strike me again and hit my shoulder. Then I managed to wrestle it off him.
Was that the first time that you got involved with the authorities to any great degree?
No. There was an incident in a town nearby where basically a group of young males, shall we say, were basically beating on this one individual and these two women. And I and a couple of mates got involved and managed to sort of help them. But you do what you do.
Yeah, you do. So you got involved with the authorities there, and did you feel disillusioned by the way that your situations had been handled?
No. Regarding the attempted murder, I never reported it to the police.
You didn't?
No.
Was there a particular reason?
Yeah, I was brought up on the premise of you don't rap. So, one of those things.
Right. So that person still walks the streets today?
No, he's passed away.
Okay. And so did any of this previous history, did it have an impact on you which took you into politics at all?
No. It was just, I've always questioned things from a very young age.
Yeah.
And when I was about 9, I had an epiphany sitting there in my primary school classroom. I didn't quite understand it until quite a few years later, but I had this overwhelming energy come over me and a sense that I was going to change the world in some way. I had no idea how or how much or anything like that. It was just it was an amazing experience. But once I'd sort of grown and my knowledge had gained, and I then began to remember it and understand it, I then started looking for what things take my interest and how I can affect change. And that's how this whole plan to take down the establishment came to be.
So what was your lightning bulb moment as such?
My awakening actually came from a documentary called Tupac Resurrection. I was raised on hip hop, and I watched that documentary, and the amount of articulate points he was making and analysing society really struck a chord, and it was so glaringly obvious to me that it was that light switch moment that a lot of people talk about, and I started understanding and noticing things, and then it developed sort of from there onto I think it was over 80 subjects I've studied now over that period, and it's just gain as much knowledge as humanly possible.
Well, I think, my awakening came from going to a public meeting in March 2013, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, come along. They're talking about the European Union." And at 2013, I hadn't been paying attention to our membership particularly. I remember the problems we had with fish that would be shown on the news, and then we'd all forget about things, and we're all leading busy lives, and we think our MPs are looking after us. But when I went to this public meeting, to hear that our government, to hear the truth, a fundamental truth, that we were spending all this money every day, giving it to Brussels, for no reason. It just didn't seem rational or logical. And I just thought, the people who are in charge, they must be mad people, surely.
Yeah. But it gets even worse. I mean, once you see the figures for the actual waste of the government spending every year, it's actually about 170 billion, about 22% of all government spending. And that is staggering.
It is.
I mean, you can literally eradicate all income tax pretty much on that alone. It's mind-blowing. And it's all out there. You've got 2015 European Central Bank report. You have the 2012 and 2014 Taxpayers Alliance reports. You've got the numerous Guardian, Express, Mail, independent exposés on many different elements. It's all there in the public domain, and no one seems to notice. No politician talk about it from any party at all. And it's staggering. I mean, imagine what you can do with that money, and yet they all push austerity. Why?
But I mean, it's the media is as much to blame, because they have this set agenda as well, and the set agenda was all these people coming into the country were working harder than the indigenous population, so we should shop around and bring these people in. But in actual fact, from my own personal experiences, I've not found anybody, particularly as a group of people, that have worked any harder than the indigenous population. It was simply a way of masking the fact that companies wanted cheaper and cheaper labour.
Yeah.
And if you're bringing this labour in and you're keeping your own people unemployed, There is a cost to be borne by the taxpayer with their benefit system. So
Yeah.
it's a double whammy. And the people coming in are using our facilities. And you'll know as a mathematician that you have to be earning in a family, if you're bringing a partner in, say a couple of children at school age, you have to be earning £28,000-30,000 a year to be paying sufficient tax in this country to pay for the medical side, to pay for the education, to pay for the road and infrastructure. And people don't realise that. I've had lots of debates before the referendum. Had a debate with a farmer, and he was saying, well, we won't manage without these people coming in to, pick the crops. And I said, that's fair enough. I said, but you're not paying their medical insurance. You're not paying for their education of their children. And I said, are you actually paying your staff £28,000-30,000 a year? And he went deathly quiet. And he said, no, of course I'm not. So it's all about cheap labour, isn't it?
There's a lot to do with the decision to move the economy into 80% service sector.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the roles of which the economic migrants especially have come over. You'll find them in just general warehouses, and all those types of things, where we've just moved over to the indigenous population and moved into more and more mundane service sector jobs, and especially the 0-hour contracts and the fake apprenticeships, which aren't even guaranteed in any way, shape or form to actually lead to a job at the end of it. It's all a charade, which is why the true economic unemployment numbers really are far higher than what they're saying.
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge swathe of the population that can't actually physically sign on for whatever reason, because it's become so difficult for the indigenous population. A lot of them are using their own savings to supplement low-paid work or any work. But yet, you can go to a lot of the job agencies which are specialising in 0 hours contracts. And you'll know yourself, there'll be a gangmaster going in and saying, I can fill 20 of those jobs, leave it to me. They get a cut. The people come in, they're living in substandard accommodation. There's a cut taken off the substandard accommodation. A lot of the money might get sent back to a different country. That's not benefiting our economy at all, is it?
No. I mean, I completely support economic migrants. We're in a position in this country where the vast majority want a dramatic cut in immigration, but currently we need that level of immigration. Now, we have a solution. Why not scrap the stupid useless apprenticeships and the 0-hour contracts and cut the waste, and then start a real jobs program, nationwide jobs program, to actually enhance people's skills. They need to be able to have a proper career that will last more than 5 minutes. If we actually invest in our young people, especially going forward, to actually grow the economy properly for the long term, which we can do it without borrowing, just cutting the waste, that'll be a lot more beneficial. And as people are graduating from those roles with new qualifications and new job opportunities, then the migrant numbers can steadily decline to counteract it. That's the way we move forward as a country.
Absolutely. There's no incentive at the moment, though, is there? Because the universities, the vice chancellors, a lot of them are all on maybe £300,000-400,000 a year. They're producing courses where there's no guarantee or little chance of getting employment afterwards. And when I've approached universities, I've said people should have the freedom of choice. But, it's not them that's building up the £50,000 worth of debt, which then puts the students into a very sticky position to actually be able to own a house in the future.
Yeah. I know of literally well over 100 people have gone to university and their qualifications are absolutely useless.
Yeah. And they'd have been better off leaving school
then
at, say,
people-
18 and being trained up on hands training, on the
Yes.
job training.
Yeah, we need those. I forget what they're called. The technical skills colleges we used to have
Oh, yeah.
a couple of decades ago.
Yeah.
They were an overwhelming success, and then they got rid of them. That's what we need to be bringing back on a national jobs program. It doesn't need to run that long, 5-10 years tops, and we'll be set for the next 30 easily.
So what do you make of the Canadian, or rather the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement that Jacob Rees-Mogg and other MPs seems to be promoting? This is going to include extra unemployment, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm with Trump on this. I like bilateral trade agreements. When you involve more parties in any sort of agreement, the more compromise you have to make. So doing it bilaterally, going to those who benefit your economy and giving a lot less than you otherwise would is far more beneficial than going unilaterally just to try and, on the assumption that it'll get done a hell of a lot quicker.
Well, I mean, I was watching with the Brexit thing, with the CETA, it was being passed through all the national parliaments in October 2016, which was actually after we had voted to leave. So I thought to myself, why is it that our British government, who's supposed to accept the result, is continuing business as usual, signing up to an EU deal, and with 27 other countries, with Canada? And a lot of the Canadians are up in arms about the deal. It's no benefit to the ordinary person in the street. But yet our Parliament rubber stamped it. They opened their books for 21 days, what have you. They didn't debate it. And that was October 2016. It didn't get mentioned in the House of Commons until February 2017. So there is no transparency with our government. And I think this is what leads us into, your direct democracy, which is similar to our democracy 17-4, being the 17.4 million who voted for leave. We're looking at one leave anti-corruption candidate in each constituency, because that's how it used to be in the olden days, wasn't it? The people in an area voted amongst themselves and said, right, you're going to be the best person to represent us, and we'll send you off there.
Yep, and it's only for a limited time.
Yeah.
You're quite right. That exact way wouldn't really work anymore. But the alternative is, if you had a large coalition, then no one party is going to get into power, minus Tories and Labour. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone except anyone with an IQ over 14. The only way you're going to take down the establishment, and Labour and Tories are exactly the same, is to form a coalition of parties and political organisations that are independent of each other but have core, non-negotiable agreement. For example, you have to support direct democracy. The only way you're going to have transparency in government or any political party or organisation is that if the people run it. As Brexit proved, if you give people a choice, a straight-up choice between option A or option B, they will turn out in their droves. When you start going, leader of this party, and I like some policies, but I don't like others, and I'm not sure, they don't bother getting interested because it's far too much work for them. You give them a direct voice, they'll get involved.
Well, that's that's what we're doing. Democracy 17-4. What we're doing at the moment is talking to the smaller groups, and it doesn't have to be a political party because we're essentially a campaign group. So we haven't actually registered as a political party as yet. But bringing people under a common goals about a clean Brexit and, regaining our sovereignty, which is a big ask because we're not getting that with the present government. So we want those sort of Brexit issues tackled, and our MPs, future MPs, whether they could be a member of UKIP, they could be a member of Democrats and Veterans Party, but they also have to sign up to the overall aims and ambitions of Democracy 17.4. But they also, when they go on the doorstep, it's not just about Brexit, although Brexit is a fundamental issue. They go into a constituency and need to be representing their constituency on local issues too. So these people need to, and know we had a discussion before we came on air, we both know about the impacts, the health impacts in particular, of things like 5G. None of the political parties, none of the main political parties, whether it be UKIP or the Green Party or the, the usuals, are talking about 5G. So you have to ask yourself, why is it that they're not?
There's a lot they won't talk about. They won't talk about the waste. They won't talk about the paedophilia. They won't talk about the 5G. They won't talk about all of the pharmaceuticals that have been linked to all sorts of cancers and diseases. They won't talk about fluoridation of water. They won't talk about the spraying in the skies. They won't talk about anything because it does not.
It's a very narrow agenda. And to be honest, when I was working for the referendum campaign, I was very, very aware that the Leave groups tended to either focus on immigration, on trade, or, they needed to have had a much broader agenda if they were going to do the job properly. They didn't really talk about a military unification. A couple of them might have mentioned an EU army because it had been mentioned in the Daily Mail. But they didn't talk. Military unification is quite a different matter to an army, like an add-on army, as you know. So it's, I think now is the time where we all do have to unify. And it's great to talk today, and you've got a great following on Facebook. They were all very anxious for you to come on, which is great. And I know we're going to be meeting up in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to be having chats as well. What would you like to say to the people listening on back home today?
I would just like to say this. In about 3 weeks' time, the coalition is going to be formally announced. It will be at least 60% done. Yeah. At least. That I guarantee you. This coalition will systematically grow each party. So you have, if Party A has a great ground game, they'll teach the other parties. If Party B has a large online following and are very good at those types of things, they'll show and teach the other parties. Candidate training, for example, etc., etc. This will then mean a rapid growth of each and every party. So you only need, say, about 650 constituencies.
That's right.
If you had 20 to 30 parties running in 20 to 30-ish constituencies, by having members of each party spread all over the UK, they can actually go and help canvass, go and get the word out about which party of the coalition is running in whichever area. Thus, it doesn't actually cost you anything. This is obviously a 10 grand cap on constituency spending. So it's about utilising the resources we have. And we don't have millions and millions, by massive bank financial interests.
But it's working smart, isn't it? That's the key. Yeah. And it's having education. I know that these Stepping Stones videos, when they go on Facebook, they amass quite a few thousand, and we're trying to now build the channel up, and for the political parties to start looking and educating themselves on 5G. I've had 5G Mark Steele on. We've had anti-fracking Ian W. Crane, and about paedophilia, how rife it is. And so by sharing these videos, once they get onto YouTube on the Stepping Stones to Awareness channel, this is going to streamline our operation.
Yeah. I'd like to say one thing, though, about the paedophilia.
Yeah.
In particular. What is being organised at the moment, BF alluded to phase 2, which is...
British Fight, you mean?
Yeah.
For the benefit of people who didn't know.
They alluded to it. Essentially, what's going to be is being assembled and will be complete a lot sooner than people think. Is up to 1,000 victims of social services, child sex abuse, paedophilia rings, grooming gangs, injustices in courts, whistleblowers, and they will be live streamed of at least 10 different live streams across every corner of the internet. There will be independent and some mainstream media there, and every party leader of the coalition and political organisations will be there to support them, for them to say whatever they want to say and expose everyone, names and all, about what has really been going on. This will break the mainstream media because they will be forced to report on it. And that's how we take the ground game which we're building with the coalition to the mainstream. And at that point, along with what's coming with Q, there will be absolutely no stopping it. And I guarantee you, next year there will be a general election.
There will. Because what the establishment parties are going to be thinking is they're kicking the can into the long grass, and they'll probably get Labour in, or it'll be another hung parliament. And so the next parliament, they'll think, won't be bound by this parliament's actions. But we're going to have to be building our army up now, for sure.
Well, Labour are splitting themselves in two. The Brexit betrayal will split the Tories, along with what's about to come out, that Theresa May especially was behind the illegal surveillance of the Donald Trump campaign through Spygate. Once that happens, she will resign. Yeah.
But she was always going to be the straw woman anyway, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And what worries me, though, is that Brexiteers seem to think that by putting somebody else in place of her, some sort of pseudo-Brexit MP, will actually do the job. And it won't.
No. This is what we're trying to educate UKIP about, UKIP supporters in particular. The truth of the matter is that UKIP are funded by many Tory donors.
That's right.
They're used nothing more than a pressure group.
That's right. It's a pressure valve for the establishment.
Yeah.
So they're basically, that's why they wouldn't talk about military unification last November when we'd set up our PESCO Gate campaign, Permanent Structured Cooperation. They wouldn't talk about it for weeks.
It's also why they won't talk about anything else in their manifesto. I mean, you've probably read the manifesto, as have I, and many other people. It's actually not bad. But the problem is that they never talk about it. What do they talk about? Brexit, immigration, burqas. Repeat. That's literally it. Why? If you're a real party, why would you rule out any coalition with anyone apart from Tories?
Exactly.
So apparently, get Brexit done.
I know. And they are supportive of fracking, which the Tories are. So that's why it's seen as, that's why it's supported by the Tories.
Well, British Fight released UKIP's financials on Twitter for everyone to see. I implore everyone to go and have a look and see for yourself. See who those individuals are. I really please do. And if anyone who's voted for Britain, all right, I respect you, and will happily work with you. However, Anne-Marie Waters is how to put this politely.
Tom, whilst you're thinking about it, you're going higher up the screen. Could you just lift your lap? That's better. Yep, fine, perfect.
Okay.
You were going to say about For Britain.
Yeah. Anne-Marie Waters, even though I respect the lady, she's very, very single-minded, shall we say. She has also ruled out any coalition with anyone. Now, I ask UKIP and For Britain members one question.
Yep.
How on earth are either of you going to ever get into power? And once you understand and have the answer to that question, then I ask you, what's the point?
Well, you remember in 2015, UKIP was at its height of its popularity. And how many MPs did they get elected?
4 million votes and 1 MP.
Exactly.
Tells you it doesn't work. Whereas if you have a coalition of parties running split up the constituencies, and you're able to tap into pretty much unlimited manpower and resources without costing you anything, what better way is there to take on the establishment? There isn't one.
Absolutely. So you and I we're sharing the same hymn sheet. So it's really good to speak to you, and hopefully I will see you in a couple of weeks' time, provided no one else attempts to murder you.
I'd like to see him try.
All right, Tom, you have a good night, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
And thanks to the audience for listening to another Stepping Stones to Awareness interview. You've heard it from Tom Parsons' mouth now, who's the leader of the People's Revolution Party. We're singing from the same hymn sheet, and I hope you'll join us too, and we will bring down the establishment. Thank you for listening, and see you again soon. Bye.